Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. This week I am doing another update on my project horse, Pony. I had been riding Pony pretty consistently up until January, but in early January I went away for work for a week. Then I took Pony to get his wolf teeth pulled, and by the time he was cleared to come back into work, we'd had a string of bad weather, so either temps that were below freezing, snow or ice or rain that would immediately ice over when those temps went back down to freezing. So my ring was just like a horrible layer of ice, and all of the horses really just sat. So fast forward to last week when things finally started warming up and I had a bit more free time after daylight savings. So now Pony had gone 2 months without being ridden. And I will be the first to admit that while the weather was so bad, I was not really spending any more time than I needed to in the barn outside of what it took to keep the horses alive and comfortable. So that meant Pony wasn't getting much ground training or really any extensive grooming either. So the first thing I wanted to do was just start working on the ground. Pony doesn't lunge well, he's not really responsive to the whip cracking, and I don't like the idea of increasing the pressure from the lunge whip to what I imagine it would take to get him to respond. So I've pretty much ruled out lunging as a part of his process for going back to work, but he is young and green, and even though it had warmed up, it was still windy and winter, so I don't want to get right back on by actually just getting on him. So I got a little bit creative. The first few days back, I just took him on walks around my property. I would walk him down the driveway, over to the mailbox to get the mail, took him out to get my trash cans, and then I would walk around the dry lot. And even though, like I said, he doesn't really lunge, I actually tried to practice just driving him away from me, at least at the walk, while on a lead rope. Unlike my off-track horses, who I found need something a little bit more strenuous to help them settle in, Pony finds a walk to be plenty exhausting. So after a few days of just walking around on the ground, I was ready to graduate to riding. For his first ride back, I decided to start him in my dry lot, which is quite a bit smaller and also more sheltered from the road and other outside occurrences than my ring is. I was a little apprehensive to get back on because I feel like Pony is so young and green, and I just have no idea how much he's going to remember after his time off. I had the mindset don't assume that he remembers anything. And then I was pleasantly surprised. So I took him around at the walk for about 10 minutes. Once it was pretty clear that he kind of remembered things, we were just renegotiating the contact. I was asking him to soften on each rein, move off of my legs, and then eventually I popped him up into a trot and basically asked him to work on the same things. This first day back under saddle, I really only wanted to walk and trot. My primary focus was just reviewing the contact and the leg aids. So I did a lot of changing of bend, even in going in the same direction, softening off of each rein, and especially in the walk, but also a little bit at the trot. And then at the end of the ride, Pony was getting a little bit tired, but he was also ignoring my leg aids and not going forward when I asked or moving laterally when I asked. So I did get a brief unintentional canter when I really tried to wake him up and send him forward. I just went with it though because it was really quite nice and he seemed very happy to do it, and I didn't want to punish him for going forward. So then we came back down to the trot afterwards and I made sure that was nice and forward. And then to wrap the ride, I just did a little bit of trot around to review the connection, and that's where we left it for the day. I actually didn't film my second ride back on Pony because I assumed it would be more or less the same as the first one, but he'd actually made some pretty big improvements in his connection in the bridle. But it was also about 15 degrees colder, and we'd moved into the bigger arena for the first time, so he was quite a bit more forward and feeling a little bit frisky. There was more unintentional cantering and also a little bit of head tossing and just a little bit of frisky behavior, but none of it's on video, so we'll skip on to the next time that I rode him, which I felt was more of a mental exercise for him because my neighbor came over with her horse and my other two horses found that quite exciting. So they were running around in their field, and Pony had never really ridden in the ring with another horse before. So he was excited, my neighbor's horse was excited. I mean, they were all just excited to see each other. So I did a lot of hand walking while my neighbor rode, And then at the end, I got on and walked around a bit, and I felt like by the time I got on, Pony was super relaxed and super chill. And then I did a really short trot in either direction, and he did spook at the mounting block or her horse. I'm not really sure when I changed directions, but other than that, he was like foot perfect. I was really pleased with him. So then the next day, when my neighbor came by with her horse again, all of the horses, including the Peanut Gallery, my two horses that were not being ridden, were way more settled. So I still kept it short, and I consider that still more of a mental workout for him because he was really sharing the ring with the other horse that time, where we were both kind of riding just normal riding together. Whereas the first day we were both being very cautious and we were doing a lot of walking, and I even wasn't mounted most of the time. But he was very settled and very well behaved. And so that brings us to our latest ride that I did film with Pony, which was the first time I felt like it was appropriate to intentionally ask him to canter under saddle. And he's already making huge improvements in his ability to move off of either leg and soften into the connection and give to either rein. But he's still just a baby and still learning. But the progress he's made in this last week of consistent work was really impressive in terms of just improving his connection and straightness. I can tell he's lost a lot of fitness, and I think it's really impacting the canter. But I think he's going to get caught up pretty quickly, and he's almost ready to surpass where he was when he took time off at the beginning of the winter. So the last thing I did was after this ride, and I did not film it, but I did also take him off the farm to ride in a lesson, and he was really super. On that day, when I took him off the trailer, it was cold and windy, and I was wondering if he would settle in enough for me to get on him at all. But as soon as we got into the ring, he remembered where he was and he remembered his job. And with a little coaching from my instructor, I was able to get him settled and working as nicely as he's ever gone. And for those who were wondering how his trailer loading practice paid off, he loaded in both directions with absolutely no hesitation, which was great because I was running late for my lesson. So to close the loop on that, he seems to be back to his former trailer loading greatness. So thanks for watching the latest pony update. If you liked this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more pony videos.